Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you on this May 21st, 2025. I have all of the stories for your rush hour ride to work. And on today's episode, we'll hear from Haley Welch, Hawk Tuah girl, as she explains the process of being raided as they sort of investigated her sham crypto coin. And then we hear from Justin Bieber, a bizarre confession about why he never thought his wife would become a cover girl for Vogue. Well, she proved him wrong. We'll share that. And then Blake Lively in the news as the press continues to look not good for her and for her brother now, as I guess his company was creeping out a lot of people. I got a story about that. And then Brian Friedman, a lawyer for Justin Baldoni, speaks out about the Rule 11 sanctions that have been filed by both Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. And then we've got Marco Rubio getting absolutely grilled by senators. And one even says, "I wish I never voted for you." And then after that, a very somber conversation about Gaza, as reports have come out that up to 14,000 babies are now really struggling to receive food, along with 1 million or so, 2 million other people. It's a tough story to get to. We cannot turn a blind eye to it, and we have the power to elevate the story globally so that these kids and adults get fed. I know it's a lot to talk about early in the morning, but we need to. We will not be complicit in the silence, in the starvation of these people, these innocent lives. I got all these stories and more. It's all coming up right now on The Rush. You know, it's a tough needle. It's a tight needle to thread covering pop culture and politics and world news. But I really believe we can do it all and have that conversation. Some stories have more irreverence than others. Right now, sad story to start with. Cheers star George Wendt, dead at 76. He, of course, was famous for the starring role in the NBC long-running sitcom Cheers. So for those, I guess, elder millennials, Gen X, boomers, I think elder millennials, we were a little too young for Cheers, but maybe you enjoyed it. You know, fun fact, my aunt had a guest starring role. I think she played Ted Danson's girlfriend in it. Anyhow, let's move it on. Here's Hawk Tuah girl Haley Welch. She was never, I don't believe she was ever charged with a crime. She was investigated, but of course she did a crypto pump and dump style scheme. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I believe she was targeted because she's not that smart of a person. I don't mean that to knock her, and some have said, Dave, you're letting her off the hook because she's a young, blonde, white woman, and maybe that's the case, but I truly believe she had no idea she was about to scam people. Have a listen to this.
Wish we knew then what we know now.
What would you say to your fans that actually lost money in the coin?
I feel like I let them down a lot. It makes me feel really bad that they trusted me, and I led them to something that I did not have enough knowledge about. I thought it would be best if I just sat here and addressed it myself. Feds come to Granny's house and knocked on her door, and they're like, "Oh, you're not in any trouble. We just want to ask you questions about everything." And then they wanted to see my phone. So I was like, okay, well, that's not a problem. Interrogated me, asking me questions, and everything else related to crypto. They went through my phone. So they cleared me. I was good to go, and then the SEC picked it up. And then they didn't want to talk with me, but they wanted my phone. So I sent my phone off to them for 2 or 3 days, and I guess they cloned my phone, copied it, something. But
all right, so they found nothing because she was kind of duped. Her followers were, and again, anyone who invests in these coins for the most part should understand that there is no inherent value to them, right? But I have to tell you this. Here we have Haley Welch, a complete nobody who made her fame by being the Hawk Tuah girl. God bless her. We're fans, right? But here she is willing to show the evidence, know she was duped, apologize to her fans. Meanwhile, the same type of coin, several days before he became president of the United States, Trump's meme coin had 813 unique wallets, those are people, that all lost a collective $2 billion by trading the Trump coin. Now, that money doesn't come out of nowhere, right? That's people who invested in a coin and then it was, other people sold it high and then they lost money. So that $2 billion that was lost by 813,000 people was most likely won by a couple hundred or a couple thousand people. The rich get rich, the poor get poor. And that's just a pump and dump scheme. And most people don't know enough about it to understand how much of a scam it actually is. But here we actually can give credit to Haley Welch for apologizing to her fans. And, sadly, the other person who did a pump and dump scheme is President of the United States. Say what you want about that. Those are the facts. Too late now to say sorry. Justin Bieber in the news told Haley she'd never cover for Vogue. So yeah, this is what he said, right? And again, he's telling on himself. I say give credit to people for sharing their darkest moments. He says, this reminds me when Haley and I got into a huge fight. I told Hales that she would never be on the cover of Vogue. Yikes, I know, so mean. For some reason, because I felt so disrespected, I thought I got to get even. I think as we mature, we realize that we're not helping anything by getting even. We're honestly just prolonging what we really want, which is intimacy and connection. So baby, you already know, but forgive me for saying you wouldn't get a Vogue cover because clearly I was sadly mistaken. Yeah, first of all, obviously, that's wildly toxic that anyone would say anything like that to their loved ones. But as we know, hurt people, right? And good on him for at least admitting to that. You should never be in a relationship with anybody that is not trying to elevate you to the highest levels and frequencies you can offer. But there she is, Haley Bieber, and she got the cover of Vogue. So, hey, very happy for that story. Even if your man didn't believe in you, you made him eat crow. All right, let's get into our daily update in the Blake Lively vs. Justin Baldoni lawsuit. Trial doesn't start till March of 2026 if it's not delayed. Or if it doesn't settle, well, Ryan Reynolds wants Justin Baldoni's team sanctioned for frivolous suit. This following the previous day's news that, of course, Blake Lively also wanted sanctions. They're saying this whole suit was done for PR reasons, X, Y, and Z. Well, we've already heard from the lawyers for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, but now we're going to hear from Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman. He offers this statement. He blasted Blake and Ryan's request, telling TMZ, in their latest assault on Mr. Baldoni and the other Wayfair parties, Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds are now seeking sanctions on the purported ground that certain allegations in their complaint are frivolous. In fact, it is Mr. Reynolds and Miss Lively's sanctions motions that are frivolous. The Wayfair party's complaint contains substantial factual allegations supported by a mountain of evidence. We anticipate that the court will agree. And we'll have to see what the court says. I mean, all of these motions to dismiss have not even been ruled upon by the judge, right? They've tried to get everything dismissed. So between the sanctions, Rule 11 sanctions, between the motions to dismiss, what the hell's actually going on over here? Well, here's an interesting story for you. Staff detail toxic and insane workplace run by Blake Lively and that they were paid off to keep quiet. Now, I don't know how many of these articles by Daily Mail are fan fiction. They're behind the exclusive paywall, but hey, we got a copy of it for you right here. Inside story of Blake Lively's disastrous attempt to copy Gwyneth Paltrow. Staff blow whistle on drugs, affairs, and a bed in the office. Now, be careful, that's a little bit of a misleading title, but that's what we know from the media, right? Blake Lively's now defunct lifestyle brand was a toxic and unprofessional workplace that ended up mirrored in messy legal claims, ex-staff have told the Daily Mail. Established in 2014, Preserve was meant to be Blake's answer to Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, selling high-priced artisanal goods online. Aren't they rich enough? Who needs all of this? The Daily Mail spoke to 6 former employees of the company who revealed the shocking inside story of the chaotic company, with some expressing outrage at the irony of the entitled actress' current claim of an inappropriate workplace leveled against her co-star Justin Baldoni. So this was run out of a Manhattan studio apartment owned by Blake's brother Eric Lively, where he allegedly drank alcohol, smoked pot, frequently left staff out in the cold when he overslept, and forced them to work sitting on the floor for months before buying furniture, the ex-employees claim. As a boss of the company, 43-year-old Eric, who got married in 2005, even had an affair with one of the employees. 3 former staff members told the Daily Mail. So again, this all might be true. What does this say about Blake Lively? Well, I'll tell you what it says. The longer Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni battle this thing out, the longer skeletons in the closet will have a chance to come out. Now, Justin Baldoni doesn't seemingly have any other skeletons in the closet, but this does not exactly look good for Blake's PR. The entire company was an absolute disaster. The workplace allegations that Blake is making now against Baldoni are deeply ironic, given that it was one of the most insane, toxic, emotionally draining, and disorganized environments you could imagine. Again, I don't know how much Blake has to do with this. And again, I'm not saying that to defend her. It's just, this is news to me, this company from a decade ago. So some of the staff also are said to have received settlements of up to $300,000 after threatening legal action over their treatment. Not even a whisper leaked to the press at the time, supposedly thanks to the work of Blake's fastidious publicist Leslie Sloan, who is currently also embroiled in the legal battle with Baldoni. Leslie Sloan shut it down. They buried every single thing from that company. Well, must be a pretty good publicist, because this is the first we're hearing about it. Blake partnered with successful LA marketing businessman Krishnan Menon, who helped launch Preserve using staff from his company Phenomenon Marketing in 2014. So again, there's saying that people were working on the floors, and there was all these other issues going on. Of course, her brother, Blake Lively's brother, cheating and all of this. So some people were working every single day, 20 hours a day, a crazy amount, not because there was work to be done, but because it was so dysfunctional and Eric Lively captured people into his sphere. The use of Eric's loft as an all-hours business irked neighbors who filed several complaints. All right, so anyway, a total interesting story of the character of the Liveleys, but will this be anything that's brought up in court? Probably not. But I will say this. You really don't know what you're looking for sometimes when you kind of get people talking, right? So this happened a decade ago at one of their companies. What else is out there? If Blake Lively's publicist was able to bury this story 11 years ago, what else has been buried, and will it be dug up? The longer this court case drags out, the more stories like this might come, and we'll be here to cover it. All right, well, we got a juicy Senate hearing where Marco Rubio and Senator Van Hollen get into a heated exchange. So Senator Van Hollen has fought for those people that were sent to the El Salvadorian prison, the Gulag as it's called, without any due process. And now we've got Marco Rubio, who not exactly well liked, right? In the presidential primaries, didn't receive a vote even from his mother, as far as I don't think he got one vote. His wife was like, it's going to be a no for me. So either way, now it looks like Senator Van Hollen is doing the whole, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Have a listen to this.
I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Ugh, this guy, he sucks, right? And by the way, Marco Rubio, there's countless examples of his hypocrisy where he goes back on things he said just several years ago, right? Here in this opinion piece, Marco Rubio developed a case of amnesia on Russia and contradicts his own stance. And that's what, we need to expose. Spineless people. It's one thing to change your opinion when you evolve and have more information, but it's another just to call out these folks that'll say or do whatever they need to say or do to stay in power. Does it benefit the American people? No, not at all. Okay, well, I've got, sometimes when we cover the show, there's funny stories we can share, irreverent. We've got, the All-American Rejects share, sort of tour around all the backyards we've been sharing. But sometimes there's a heavy story that we need to address. And we have reached a fever pitch to the war in Gaza that cannot be ignored. Here we have reports that the United Nations is warning 14,000 babies in Gaza will die in 48 hours without aid. And I have to tell you, this report came out 2 days ago.
Now to the urgent warnings tonight about the humanitarian crisis worsening in Gaza. The UN now warning that 14,000 babies could die within 48 hours if aid doesn't reach them right away. Here's our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell.
As Israel unleashes a furious aerial attack and expands ground operations deeper into Gaza, growing international condemnation over the rapidly unfolding humanitarian disaster.
So there are people speaking out from other countries. They're getting unified to say starvation cannot be a part of war, modern war in 2025. We live in a time now with technology that can be precise. Our country, we have our own skeletons. We're still drone bombing buildings and hoping that we got the good guy or the bad guy, and the collateral damage is colossal. We have blood on our hands. That is a fact. But what we're watching play out right now is an absolute atrocity, one in which I cannot be complicit in being a part of by not sharing this with you guys. I know it's a lot to share. It's heavy, but we have the chance with the world we live in. We have the chance to make this story so loud and elevated that the gates open up and that the humanitarian aid can come in. Now, in the past, and in the recent past, you'd be called an anti-Semitic to sort of want to defend the innocent lives, because there's this idea where if you're for these innocent lives, you're against these. There's multiple things that can be true. There's a terror organization called Hamas that is running the Palestinians into the ground. They themselves have hid, their whereabouts underneath certain hospitals or, disguised ambulances as attack vehicles and whatnot. They've done this. They're bad people. And at the same time, the government in Israel has gone too far. And we need to make sure we clarify, we are speaking about the government of Israel and not Israelis. There's plenty of people in Israel that don't like what's going on. Just like in our country, there's plenty of people that don't like what's going on here. I don't like the lack of due process, whether it's for citizens or immigrants, whether it's for visa holders being deported to El Salvadorian prisons. I don't like that one bit, and we're using our voice to sort of fight our fight that we have here, in our homeland. But what we're watching play out abroad needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. And other countries are taking action, and as citizens of the United States of America, we cannot be the last to the party here. Now, our government and our tax dollars have been complicit in some of what's going on, but right now, regardless of where we stood, regardless of where you stand or I stand, I think we all can agree on the fact that starving kids need to be fed. Have a listen to this.
The UK, France, and Canada have released a joint statement saying that they would take actions against Israel if they did not lift the blockade on humanitarian aid to the Palestinian territory. They're also saying that Israel needs to completely stop the expansion of the military offensive in the Gaza Strip and stop expanding illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank, saying that these countries would be willing to impose sanctions as a result. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister said that Israel is now allowing a very basic amount of food into the Palestinian territory, something these countries say is wholly inadequate.
Yeah, there are literally so many starving babies, children, and adults in the Gaza region right now. The food that they're allowing in is not enough. And the food that is available on the other side, just waiting for the doors to open up. It's there, and the United Nations and other humanitarian aid organizations are begging to let them feed these kids. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, we covered Senator Van Hollen already, but here he is speaking out loudly about what's going on.
The UN's begging to go in. The Israeli government says they don't want to work with the UN here. They want to work with this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that's just being set up. What do you know about this? Should there be U.S. support for it?
So, Margaret, you're right. It's very hard to look at those pictures. And the United States has been complicit. President Trump was in the region and really did nothing, said virtually nothing about what's happening in Gaza, which is on fire. We're in 77th day of a full blockade. 2 million Palestinians are starving.
And listen, this is a humanitarian issue. It does not have to be political. President Biden also is complicit in this. Regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, we have to look at the people that are starving and see them as our own, because we're all humans. And we can't sit by and watch this. And you might think, Dave, what the heck can we do about this? Share. Talk to people. Let people know that you don't stand for this. And believe it or not, today, we can all come together and make enough noise to make a change. This can happen today. It has to. There is no more time.
This is collective punishment that is clearly illegal under international law. And this other idea that's been cooked up either by the Israelis or by the Trump administration is clearly not fit for purpose when it comes to trying to address this burgeoning famine. And all it will do is further allow food to be used as a weapon of war. So I hope the United States will back off this plan. None of the credible international organizations have said that they will participate because it violates, international norms and how it's structured. And so I hope the United States will back off and immediately call today to allow the trucks right now that have food to be able to come provide food to starving people. These are provided by international aid organizations.
Is there anything that the United States can do in terms of leverage? You've been bipartisan in your criticism. You said that what happened in Gaza is a black stain on Joe Biden's legacy as president. You are criticizing the current administration for not doing more here. What leverage is there? I mean, is what you're saying falling on any ears that want to listen?
Well, I've had conversations with some people in the Trump administration and made clear that they need to do more. One of the very obvious things they could do is President Trump today could call upon the Netanyahu government to let aid in. I mean, the president acknowledged there are people starving in Gaza the other day. He said so. Mm-hmm. But why hasn't he called on, Netanyahu to let the aid in? Let's just start with that.
I agree. Tweet, share, make some noise. Now, here's an interesting video. This video is almost a month old. This is a guy who lives in Gaza, and what's very interesting about this crisis is the people of Gaza are trying to get their message out, right? It's kind of the first time we've got something, or, we've got the social media and the technology here to share your story, but there's a lot of silencing of what's going on. So they're kind of making what seems like very playful videos to kind of get into the algorithm and then sharing the absolute truth of what's going on. So there's been something like 77 or more straight days since this blockade of food. Now imagine you don't have food for 5-6 days. Now imagine day 9, day 10, every market's running dry. There's only a couple locally grown vegetables. The canned goods are gone. Day 30, day 40, day 50, several months later, and they still don't have any markets where they can go to. Any food that is available is extremely expensive and scarce. And again, like I said, this video right here is several weeks old.
I'm gonna go to the markets right now. Look at the shovel next to me. That's crazy. So I was pretty hungry, so I went to the market and I was really shocked. This guy who usually sells vegetables, all his shelves are empty. Maybe he's closed down, so I went to another shop. Also empty. So I went to grab a drink. Empty. The markets are empty, bro. I'll just go home. So why is the market empty? Well, the borders have been closed since March 2nd. That's 8 weeks. Since the border is closed, no food has been entering. If you're lucky enough to find something in the markets, it's expensive. And there's no proper food, which means everyone in Gaza is malnutritioned.
And by everyone, we're talking several million people, right? So imagine a Yankee Stadium full of people. That's 50,000. Now you do the math on that. 20 times that? I mean, how many people out here, just imagine as you watch this, maybe you're grabbing a breakfast. We don't even know what it feels like to starve. We might know what it feels like to be hungry, maybe you skipped a meal, but to starve to these levels, we know nothing about it. Now, Miss Rachel has spoken out against the starvation. She's spoken for all the children in different war-torn areas, whether it be in Gaza, whether it be the hostages that Hamas has taken, right? There's you can fight the fight where just because you're trying to help the million or so children in Gaza doesn't mean you're not trying to help the hostages that the Hamas has taken, right? And also the children in Ukraine that have been part of war-torn areas and other places. Well, she's spoken out to the point where there have been organizations that want her investigated for being associated with Hamas, which couldn't be further from the truth. She's a goddamn American hero is what she is. She's educated millions of kids, provided entertainment on YouTube as like a childhood educator and songwriter. And also she donated $1 million to try to help kids. But this money and the donations are not getting where they need to go.
It's sad that people try to make it controversial when you speak out for children that are facing immeasurable suffering. The largest cohort of child amputees in modern history, that acronym for a child who has no surviving relatives. And I think it should be controversial to not say anything.
You mentioned silence and how you really need to speak out. It's weird not to speak out. I'm sure you have a lot of good people in your lives, well-meaning friends and family, who are saying to you, just be quiet. It's not worth it. Think about yourself and your career and your family and your safety. Just shh. Don't go there. A lot of celebrities don't say anything about this stuff. What do you say to them?
Well, I say, what would you want someone to do if you were there? Because as a mother, I met Isra, Rahaf's mom, and if I was there and she was here, what would I want her to do?
And that's what empathy is, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And it's so easy to hear these terms of the wars in Gaza and genocides and what's this and what's that, and think that's not my problem. I mean, I have friends and family that know nothing about what's going on right there. And yet social media, it puts it in our pockets, and you can't avoid the atrocities of what's going on. Luckily, other governments and organizations are making a lot of noise here. But it involves all of us, and it's something that we need to take a stand for.
Can you imagine what it says about Israel? That to have watched 2 million people, the majority of whom are children, and then a huge portion are women, and then men who have nothing to do with Hamas, to sit there and watch them just starve to death is something the Israelis as a whole, as a country, are perfectly happy to watch.
And again, it is not the Israelis as a whole are perfectly happy to watch. It is the government that is letting this happen.
Into a cause, and therefore allowing even little bits and pieces of some flour into Gaza to prevent the world watching them starve to death. That's unpopular in Israel, to allow some food in. Nobody, by the way, is asking Israel to provide the food. The food's there. It comes from international organizations, from World Hunger Groups, from the UN. The issue isn't that Israel refuses to feed the Palestinians. The issue is that Israel is blocking the entrance of humanitarian trucks that have been furnished by other international aid groups and humanitarian organizations.
Now, there was a ship that was arriving that was bombed, and people have said, well, no, this is Hamas starving the people. And it's like, listen, I'm sure both things have happened. I'm sure there has been times where the Hamas has taken the goods and starved their own people to be these sort of martyr terrorists. Absolutely. But in this case, we cannot play that card. It is the Israeli government, and the pressure needs to be put on them to let these trucks in. Here is a TikTok in Egypt, right? Not far away from the gates to feed these kids. And look at all the food that's just sitting there waiting to be delivered.
Hi, I'm Karim from WCK Egypt team. We are here nearby the border gate. We are waiting the crossing to open because we have so many trucks here. We are waiting the crossing to open to enter Gaza. All these trucks is waiting here for a while, and all these trucks are loaded with humanitarian aid, relief equipment, and we hope the crossing opens soon. Thank you.
And so do I. And I cannot wait till I can report on this story from a place where we have the food going to the kids and to the family. British doctors in Gaza say, stop talking, do something.
Do something. Stop talking and do something.
A really large bomb has just gone off not far to the east of us.
And so, of course, they're sharing, they're there, they're in the areas, they're treating these victims with no sterilization. Hospitals this week still being bombed. Hundreds of people have died. The ceasefires are falling apart. And finally, people are coming together and saying, no, we're not going to let this happen.
I'm currently in an UNRWA warehouse in Amman, Jordan. Just this morning, I received footage from my colleagues in Gaza. They have absolutely nothing left. And yet here, just a few hours away, there's everything. There's enough food here for 200,000 people alone for an entire month. There's critical medication, life-saving medical supplies, everything that everybody needs. It's been sitting here for weeks on end, ready to enter the Gaza Strip. We need this aid to enter now. It has to go to people who are desperate. These families, they are being starved and bombed every day in horrendous, appalling conditions. Every basic right, every basic need has not been met. And we can change this. We have everything here. We have the mechanisms in place. We just need the political will.
There it is. They need the political will. And I think it's coming. I truly think it's coming, but it has to happen today.
We're now entering a dark new phase in this conflict. Netanyahu's government is planning to drive Gazans from their homes into a corner of the Strip to the south and permit them a fraction of the aid that they need. Yesterday, Minister Smodrik even spoke of Israeli forces cleansing Gaza. Destroying what's left of residents, Palestinians, being relocated, he said, to third countries. We must call this what it is. It is extremism. It is dangerous. It is repellent. It is monstrous, and I condemn it in the strongest possible terms.
Powerful stuff. And listen, you know, it's been several years of war. And of course, October 7th was a terrible terrorist attack on the Israeli people. And it's a complicated scenario that's been playing out for a century, right? The lack of peace in the Middle East. I've received messages and continue to receive messages from people all over sharing extreme opinions on what's going on. And for a long time, I remained silent because I didn't know for myself what to think and what to do. It was never a fear that I'd lose an audience member. You guys know, crack an egg to make an omelet. Sometimes that's just what happens. I want to be impeccable with my word, and I want to be able to share with people what I know. And what I know now is that these kids are starving. And we've known this for a good bit. And we had people reach out actually last year that listened to the Rush Hour podcast, and they reached out from Gaza. And I had a hard time keeping up with them. And they were asking me why I wasn't doing anything. And I felt helpless. And to an extent, I still feel helpless. And to those people who probably no longer listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't and haven't been part of a movement that is larger and bigger that can offer this change. But today, I'm begging people, let's stop this and let's feed these kids. That's it for me. I'll be back this afternoon.